John Adams, who was willing to give his life, his fortunes, his sacred honor, said our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Why in the world would he say that? Huge wisdom there. But it came from an understanding that humanity wasn't enough in itself. The wisdom of beings, human beings, weren't wise enough in their own right, but rather had to flow from someone and some truth wiser than that. Social critic Irving Kristol, I think, encapsulated it when he said, this appears to be a sociological truth. It is religion that reassures people that this world of ours is a home, not just a habitat, and that the tragedies and unfairness we all experience are features of a more benign, if not necessarily comprehensible, whole. It is religion that restrains the self-seeking, hedonistic impulse so easily engendered by a successful market economy. We are a successful market economy here in the United States, and I'm grateful for that, and we need to do a lot of work to continue that. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who understood it with his life, said all individual human rights are granted because man is God's creature. That is, freedom was given to the individual conditionally, in the assumption of his constant religious responsibility. 200 or even 50 years ago, it would have seemed quite impossible in America that an individual could be granted boundless freedom simply for the satisfaction of his instincts and whims. And Mr. Speaker, I submit to you that seems to be the point in time where we're at right now, where we're willing for our whims, our instincts, our desires, our own purposes to give in to the baseness of those hedonistic philosophies. And it's proven to be true. The results are there. Just a few of them. The U.S., since 1960, the end of the so-called Christian America, as the media has called it in Newsweek. The U.S. illegitimacy rate has rocketed from 5% of all births to 41%. Among African Americans, the share of births out of wedlock is 71%, up from 23% in 1960. The percentage of households that were married couple families with children under 18 had plummeted by 2006 to just 21.6%. Since Roe v. Wade, 50 million plus abortions have been performed. Declaration of Independence, we're all endowed with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Between 1960 and 1990, the teenage suicide rate tripled, though the number then fell. As of 2006, suicide was the third leading cause of death of young adults and adolescents aged 15 to 24, just behind homicides. And I could go on with the tragic results of going away from religious belief, faith belief, truth, a moral character. And again, all laws are moral. Right, wrong, or indifferent. The underpinnings that allowed God to bless this great country, of which is still receiving the results of much of that blessing. The founders argued very clearly that virtue derived, and I quote here, that virtue derived from religion is indispensable to limited government. The American model of religious liberty takes a strongly positive view of religious practice, both private and public. Far from privatizing religion, it assumes that religious believers and institutions will take active roles in society, including ministers, including engaging in politics and policy making and helping form the public's moral consensus In fact, the American founders considered religious engagement in shaping the public morality essential to ordered liberty and the success of their experiment in self-government. Jonathan Witherspoon, a minister who signed the Declaration of Independence. Let me ask some questions here. And I take this information from Planned Parenthood Federation of America, your website, and I take it from Medicare Benefit Policy Manual. It says that both federally qualified health care centers, 13,000 of them in this listing, and Planned Parenthood centers provide pelvic exams, Pap HPV testing, STD testing, manual breast exams, birth control. Both entities provide that. Is that correct?
I don't know what all the entirety of what all FQHCs provide, but I know that we provide all of those.
But you provide all that I just mentioned.
Yes.
But emergency first responder care, mammograms, immunizations, diabetes and glaucoma screenings, cholesterol screenings, pediatric eye, ear, dental screenings, well child services, radiological services, cardiovascular blood tests, bone mass measurement, nurse on staff, all of those, according to your website, you don't provide.
We provide in some places, but it's not a core service, so it depends on the state.
It's not a promised service.
It depends on the state.
According to the Medicare Benefit Policy Manual, the federally qualified health care centers provide those services. Now, if we're talking about care for women, I would suggest that the care is there in 13,000 without the controversy of the abortions, the fetal manipulation, and potential use of body parts in the wrong way. And I think for the record, if we're talking about women's health care, the issue of where we find it is found in 13,000 plus centers available to women, and Medicaid isn't dealing with it. And, oh, by the way, your opening statement indicated great problems with Medicaid, and Obamacare is supposed to take care of that. I hear my time has ended, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So the next question comes from Ursula in Lansing and Glenna, right here in Eaton Rapids. Last Tuesday, you voted to allow Americans' internet histories and data to be collected, bought and sold by large telecom companies such as Comcast and AT&T without their knowledge or consent. We don't allow the post office to open and share our mail, nor do we allow telecom companies to listen and record our phone conversation. Why is collecting citizens' internet data and selling it okay to you? And as a follow-up, have you received, did campaign contributions influence your decision?
No.
Yes. 38,500.
No, it didn't influence at all. So I answered it. And that's what's taken place, and that is exactly what's correct. And let me read you some actual information on what this was, because frankly, you have no reason to fear anything further from what we did to what it was before.
Who provided the information?
This comes from the Congressional Research Service.
And where did they get it?
They got it from the law.
Now,
I agree with you, Mr. Walberg.
Republicans called the rules an internet power grab and said that they create an unfair playing field that favors tech giants like Google and Facebook, which it did. Do you want to favor just two, or do you want to give the same
Instead
law
of taking it away from the people, they should have it.
The FTC is the agency that has the ability to deal with all this. The FCC doesn't. So actually, you were not only making it unfair, but you were given an entity that didn't have the ability to carry out what this law portended to do.
what benefit is that?
And that's all that took place, so I guess that's my answer.
What benefit is that to us? That was double speak.
The benefit to you is that you, as well as every other entity that relates to you, is treated fairly with equality under the law.
That's double speak. What benefit does it
Next
provide?
question.
I agree with you, Mr. Walberg.
Okay, we're going to the next question.
Healthcare. I am committed to reforming healthcare from what this is. This is an actual schematic that was produced under CBO and other, this one's a small type at the bottom, I can tell the organization. I know Ways and Means Committee and the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee had this put out. This is what it takes to get your health care under the Affordable Care Act. The main person responsible for that is the Secretary of Health and Human Services. At the beginning, it was Secretary Sebelius. Now, of course, it's Secretary Price. If you see where you come in, it's pretty hard to see. Somewhere in this pattern, and she reports directly to the President, IRS is in here, CMS is in here, Independent Patient Advisory Board is here, Congress is over here, and you're somewhere there. That's the problem.
Just this week, Aetna announced that after doing the research, they're getting out of totally, as of 2018, providing any insurance on the exchange. Already United Healthcare has gotten out. Humana has gotten out.
Why?
Because it costs too much to provide that insurance.
You sabotaged it.
And no, it's not sabotage.
They don't have
This is-
ability. They don't know.
This is.
They don't know what's
Let
going on.
me just show this to you.
Oh, come on.
This, as you've seen, is the Affordable Care Act. That spaghetti was put together by CBO and done in cooperation with the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. And you can see that's what it takes under the Affordable Care Act to provide health care coverage for you.
You lied.
This is where the Secretary of Health and Human Services resides. This is the President over here. We have Congress over here. Then everything in between is all of the spaghetti of bureaucracy that is added to the costs of doing business for healthcare, and that's why insurance companies who were bought into the system initially with the, I guess, the encouragement that people would be mandated to buy this coverage. Ultimately, it didn't work.
Because
Where are you at?
10 years of obstruction.
Here's where you are at as patients. Now, in the years of obstruction, remember that the President signed 10 bills to repeal and replace portions of the Affordable Care Act.
All right, the next question is from Mark of Dexter. And he lists some concerns that he has and asks for your response and if you have any action to take. I'm concerned about a radical socialist left agenda, lowering the voting age to 16, abortion, infanticide, the Green Deal, national legalization of marijuana, allowing illegals to vote. What is your take on this and any action plan you have?
I agree. What more can I say? I agree. Let me just rehearse what's taken place in the last 6.5 weeks or 2.5 months. In the U.S. House, we've embraced socialism. Green New Deal being one of those. Medicare for All being a second illustration of that. Which, if you're a senior and you're on Medicare like me, ought to strike fear in your hearts, because Medicare has been in deficit since 2010, concerned about taking care of all who are legally on Medicare without adding the entire country to Medicare. We've abided by infanticide. We violated, well, when you kill a baby outside of the womb, that's infanticide.
That's not happening.
That has happened. Talk to the governor of Virginia. We violated the First Amendment. It was interesting last week when I voted against the so-called election reform bill. The ACLU stood with me on that. Did you hear that? ACLU opposed that legislation because of the violations of First Amendment liberties. Infringed on the Second Amendment without helping one child in school, or a church situation, or a theater situation in that legislation. And we defended illegal immigration.
Who particularly?
That was what has taken place over the course of the past 2.5 months since the new majority took control in the House.
Who put together that list?
So that list comes from my own experience. And if you're watching carefully the news, you'll pick that up as well. That comes from actual legislative action.
You mean Fox News?
In the last, no. Thank God we don't only have Fox News. Thank God we don't have only MSNBC either, or CNN.